Hey folks, Duane here. Just want to make sure that my microphone is working this time. I know last week's Facebook Live was a little delayed. I had to redo it all over again just because the microphone wasn't working. But thank you again for joining me. Every week I'm going to be coming to you Facebook Live to be able to talk about veteran mental health, what we've done so far this week, some things that we have coming up next week. Really what we want to do is to be able to have a honest conversation about what veteran mental health is, what veteran mental health can be. We're looking to change the way that we think about veteran mental health and how veterans access mental health services. So this has been a pretty good week. It's been pretty interesting. Had a lot of great conversations, and unfortunately some conversations that weren't so great, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I'd like to take you back a little bit and give you an overview of some of the stuff that we did this week. Again, if you remember, we're always located at veteranmentalhealth.com. That's where the Headspace and Timing blog lives. The intent is to be able to have a conversation about veteran mental health. I'm firmly of the opinion, as it says there on the website, that the guns don't go silent when the war is over. When a veteran comes back from deployment or when a veteran leaves the military, the brain, the mind still retains a lot of that stuff. And it doesn't always go quiet, but neither should veterans. There's a couple of good examples of that happening in this upcoming week. But again, I want to take you to where you can find some of the latest posts. Again, veteranmentalhealth.com. It's on the bottom of your screen there. But two of the things that we talked about this week, we released episode 3 of the Headspace and Timing podcast, and I had a guest blogger on the site. I was really excited to be able to have author Matthew Green from the UK. He was embedded with U.S. coalition forces in Iraq, but then when he returned to England, and he was doing a lot of research, and he found that there were a lot of challenges with UK veteran mental health. I connected with Matt a couple of months ago, actually, after reading an editorial that he had written about veteran mental health, and it was some pretty good stuff. We had a great conversation, and it was really interesting to hear both the similarities and differences in veteran mental health, how the UK is responding, how we respond. So I think it was a great episode. I appreciate Matt for coming on the show. You can hear the episode if you haven't checked it out yet by going to either veteranmentalhealth.com or changeyourpov.com to be able to find the Headspace and Timing show and take a listen. Definitely would recommend that you check out Matt's book, Aftershock, The Untold Story of Surviving Peace. He does a very good job at looking at what some of the responses are to supporting veterans once they return back from combat. So definitely, if you're looking for an additional summer reading book, you might want to pick up Aftershock and throw that on your bookshelf. The other post this week was a really good one. A colleague of mine, a friend, Dr. Blair Cano, works here in Colorado Springs, not with me. She has her own agency, but she is a Navy veteran, and she is a psychologist. But she wrote this post talking about the cognitive impairment and the neurological basis for PTSD. Now, I'll probably come on some other time and give sort of my speech of what of how PTSD or how things impact the brain. But Dr. Cano does a very good job of explaining this. PTSD does result in physical changes in the brain. This is something that those of us who are working with veterans, especially regarding PTSD, really have to understand. It's not just a behavioral response. It's not just a psychological response. It is a physical brain change response. So there's changes to the amygdala, the hippocampus, the limbic system. Physical structures in our brain are changed. It's recognized by those of us in the clinical mental health field as a neuropsychological condition. It impacts the brain. It, of course, also impacts the thoughts, emotions, behaviors, but it impacts the physical brain. The neurological impact of PTSD affects individuals and families, and so this is something that it impacts not only the veteran themselves, but it has an impact on everyone in their community that surrounds them. And evidence has proven that psychotherapy is effective in treating the cognitive impact of PTSD. Sitting down and talking to a mental health counselor, whatever type of modality that they use, can help, does help, has been clinically proven to help reduce PTSD. I've seen studies, and we can talk about it, and we can, compare, everything else, but studies have indicated that cognitive behavioral therapy does impact the physical areas of the brain that PTSD also impacts. We've seen lower activation in the amygdala, some more formation of the prefrontal lobe, growing again after it has shrunk. So if you're interested, definitely check out this article. This is something I think that is missing from the common discussion about PTSD. The fact that it is an actual brain impact and not just a psychological impact. I would definitely recommend that you check out Dr. Cano herself. You can see her LinkedIn profile there. And she said she would love to have a conversation about the neurological impact of PTSD. She and I have been having some conversations, many conversations among many different things. One of the main concerns that Dr. Blair Cano has is actually something, an article that comes out in Task and Purpose today about women veteran mental health. And so it is, in my experience, it is overlooked. It is something that we don't significantly focus on, not just women health in general, but women veteran mental health. So that was pretty much it for the updates on the website this week. I do want to give you a preview, as I always do, of next week's podcast. I'm pleased and proud to welcome my friend, my fellow Change Your POV podcast co-host, Jeff Adamek. Jeff was a Special Forces veteran, and he is very open about his experience, his concerns, his struggles with traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder. And so Jeff and I have a great conversation about his journey towards better veteran mental health, how he accessed mental health services there at Fort Bragg and then on the economy, and how it took him a couple times to find a veteran or find a clinician who happened to be a veteran, but it doesn't need to be that way, but find a clinician that actually works with him and met his needs and kind of helped him out. You can check out that. Again, this post isn't going to be live until next Tuesday, but in the meantime, you can check out what Jeff is doing over at the Changing Hearts and Minds podcast. He's got some really good posts or really good episodes. He's up to 8 now, I see, and so he started a little bit before me, but had an opportunity to meet with, talk with Jeff on his podcast back on the Warriors Alter Ego, but definitely I would recommend that you check out Jeff and see what he's doing over there. Another great thing that happened this week was I've had some really, really good conversations, as I've mentioned earlier. A colleague of mine, Jean South, she is the CEO of Hire Served, which is a veteran employment and mentorship agency, essentially. So Jean and I have been talking for several months now, probably about 6 months now, but more specifically about how mental health in the workplace is impacting both the veterans' performance and hiring practices. So not sure when the episode's going to come out. I would definitely recommend that you check out Hire Served and kind of keep an eye on that. But in the meantime, feel free to check out what Hire Served is doing. I am all for organizations who recognize the impact of veteran mental health on what we do and how we do things. And Jean and her team are definitely doing that. Another great thing that happened this week was the I had, I think, 3. I have another one today. Mentorship call with Veterati. Now, I didn't bring up my full profile because the mentees, obviously those mentees that I'm working with, don't want to put their stuff out there. And it's not that they're anything that these are veterans who are taking an active part in looking for support and looking for mentorship and looking for guidance and looking for ideas that can help them be more successful in their post-military lives. So if you're on Veterati and you're interested in talking about veteran mental health, as I mentioned to Gene on our podcast, when it gets released, you'll check that out, is that I'll sit there and talk about veteran mental health to the moon. It's something that is so important to me, something that I'm so passionate about, that I just want to help veterans become better versions of the good versions that they already are. So thanks to Diana and the team over at Veterati for setting this up. This is an amazing platform, and this is something that really, really is beneficial to veterans, to be able to connect with veterans. So if you go on Veterati, it's easy, quick, Veterati.com. You can sign up, you use your LinkedIn profile, and it'll pull everything over. And then you can search for me. You can find a time where I have available to talk about not just veteran mental health, but meaning and purpose. I have worked extensively over the last 4 years in the nonprofit field, so I do have experience in nonprofit development and some of the challenges that are in the nonprofit space. So if you're looking for a conversation, if you're looking for guidance or anything like that, feel free to join me on Veterati. Now, I mentioned earlier about some hard conversations that we've had this week, and this kind of thing always happens whenever we have a very high-profile death. Now, if you haven't noticed, recently the lead singer of Lincoln, the lead singer of Lincoln Park, Chester Bennington, was found dead from apparent suicide. This is connected. Apparently, Chester and Chris Cornell from Soundgarden were very good friends and were connected. And so this, whenever this happens, this always brings out a conversation about suicide into the national consciousness. When celebrities die. And it's not just something that's happened. Of course, Kurt Cobain, way back in the day, Robin Williams. Anytime this happens, this brings in a conversation about suicide into the national consciousness, and it's important to have because suicide is an epidemic. We know, of course, from a veteran standpoint, that the veteran suicide epidemic is just insidious. The latest VA report indicates that got some. See, I got to figure out how to turn all that stuff off because now you're seeing some of my upcoming things. I'm going to give a shout out to Kimberly Hessler because Kim, when I was transitioning, Kimberly Hessler is a professional here in Colorado Springs that actually one of my very first LinkedIn seminars was with Kim, and so Kim and I are setting up a conversation next week, which will be pretty cool. So my apologies for the interruption. But getting back to this, suicide, the latest VA numbers on suicide indicate that about 20 veterans a day commit suicide. This is a challenging statistic. It's a very complicated statistic. That doesn't mean that 20 post 9/11 veterans a day. It doesn't mean just 18 to 25-year-old males. There's a lot of different statistics, a lot of different indicators that go along with that. But when we have these type of incidents that will bring this into the thanks, Kim. When we have these type of incidents into the national consciousness, it's extremely important to not just focus on, yes, the tragedy of Chester and, of course, the support that he gave with veterans, but he wasn't the only individual that died by suicide recently. I've been following this particular story about a missing Command Sergeant Major, Command Sergeant Major David Folsom. Well, apparently we found out, or I found out yesterday, that Sergeant Major Folsom also died by suicide. So when we think about the celebrities who died by suicide, we know their names. Do we know the names of the 20 veterans a day who died by suicide? Not so much. But the impact of Sergeant Major Folsom's death is extremely significant to his family, those that knew him, his units. And so it's very important when we think about, especially in the veteran community, when we think about these celebrity suicides, that we also consider the individual impact. And so this is one of my major topics that I always try to bring out. And so I'm going to ask that you take a look at this video that I presented. I get it. It's a video within a Facebook Live, and so this is going over Facebook Live. You can find this video on my YouTube channel. Just search Headspace and Timing. You'll see a lot of different things, but this video is critical to to understanding veteran suicide. So I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and talk about this very, very important topic. As you can see by that video, hopefully it worked, that the message is that you have the ability to be able to stop veteran suicide. A lot of people think they don't. You think that you have to be a first responder. You think that you have to be a therapist like me. You think that you have to be a chaplain. You think that you have to be a psychiatrist. None of that's true. You just have to be a friend. You have to be somebody that is going to reach out and say, look, I don't want you to die. Reaching out to someone in your immediate circle of trust is extremely important, and that's going to be the thing that is going to keep us from taking that 20 a day to 19 a day to 18 a day to 17 a day. I'm not going to save all 20 veterans who are going to take their life today, but if I stay vigilant and I stay focused and I keep my eye out, I'm at least going to be able to save one. I'm at least going to be able to try to make a difference. So that's pretty much it. I thank everybody for coming out, checking this out. If you miss the whole show, it will be up on our Facebook page. It's going to be loaded on our YouTube page. I'd love to be able to have a conversation about veteran mental health throughout the week. We're going to be doing this every day, every Friday at 7 o'clock in the morning, our time, of course, Mountain Time. But if you're actually looking for information about veteran mental health, if you have questions, even if you have statements, hey, thank you for gathering all of these people so you can hear what I have to say. As long as it's not something that's totally off the wall, I'm welcome to be able to have a lot of conversations about this. Feel free to reach out to us. Check us out on veteranmentalhealth.com, and I look forward to talking to you next week. Thanks.